is for friends.
I thought this music was so epic.
We all like talking about gaming. The only thing that I disliked about the old game. There are so many different conversations started by gaming.
Oh, I forgot. I have you.
This could be anything. Okay, walk in that green goo. Oh, nope. That's a no. Anything Gaming Podcast. Okay, hi. Welcome to Anything Gaming. I'm Ant. He's Woody, and we have got a big show today. What have we got going on, Woody?
Actually, we got a celebration, an anniversary, 20 years of Steam, the digital distribution service that's, currently on my PC, as it is probably yours, where you can get all the fantastic video games for the last 20 years. This thing has been a behemoth. It started with Half-Life 2, and it just gets bigger and bigger every year.
Oh, 100%. And also, it's 20 years of Call of Duty, so I think it ties up together nicely, and I think we can talk about both of those things and just go through a memory lane jogging thing of all the games that have come out on these platforms. And, well, Call of Duty is its own game, but anyway.
Right. And some might call it a platform in of itself. I mean, it's a brand, just as strong as it is a brand that's lasted 20 years. It's gone through very, very different changes, much like Steam, really. And it is right to think of them in tandem, since I feel that, especially that era of, from 2002 to 2005, 2006, a real watershed moment for video games in general. That's when video games became mature as far as the public perception and how the business ran and how just the infrastructure of it all. From everything to how you get the games to how you get advertisement to the games, which of course the internet itself had a big, big, big part of. And this was, in the twilight days of social media. It's not surprising that they both kind of grew up together.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. But before we get into that, let's just have a quick discussion about that weird space in time and the time. And if you're playing along at home, put some comments in about the weird place between a retro game and a current game. There's so many, there's this black hole of what do we call a game that's for a PlayStation 3 or a Xbox 360. Is that retro in your mind, or is it what is that called?
Well, before we discuss where it ends, I think the important thing to know the players and this proper separations. Of course, you have, all the way back to Gen 1 with the Odyssey and your even your Pong machines. Now that's not just retro. That is that's crawling out of the ocean for the first time and with legs and all that. So it is kind of, a little weird to say a game like Yar's Revenge is just as retro as, say, Crazy Taxi on the Dreamcast. Technically, to the layman, especially to a little kid, maybe, but there's just such a big shift in everything there that it's almost like you have to look to where games kind of started to be how they're recognized now. And like you said, the PlayStation 3 is, I think, a division of that. I personally think PS3, Xbox 360, Wii, that's kind of where the retroness gets a little like a black hole, as you said. It gets really hazy and hard to tell which is which.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of names here that we can use for this.
For this weird Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Nostalgic. The
nostalgic works,
era.
The nostalgic eras. I mean, because even to me, I wasn't a little kid during all that, but I mean, it was 20 years ago, as a young man, and I get nostalgic about times like that, just as nostalgic as I would as a young teenager, So the nostalgic era, that might be a good moniker.
Yeah, or yesteryear. I don't think that works here.
Yesteryear to me would be, if you were to say games of my yesteryear, I'm going to go to NES and Super Nintendo. I don't even think I would include PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64 into that, because by the time those systems came out, I was a teenager, but I've seen boobs in movies. By then, the innocence while not gone, was leaving fast, with every passing day on this planet. So to me, yeah, yesteryear is more like children, I would say. Like that's the NES, SNES,
Yeah, well,
learn to draw kind of stuff.
so I'm thinking anything Atari and back is classic. Anything from there to like about PlayStation 3 is retro. Then we've got the nostalgic era, and then we've got the current games. Is that what? Let's just go with nostalgic then. I think. Start a genre.
It's kind of hard to get nostalgic. Even like let's just say the early PS4, Xbox One games. When you think about it, that was seriously what? That was 10 years ago, a little less, a little more, around 10 years. Now that I think of it, I'm pretty sure I got my PS4 in 2014. So yeah, we're approaching the 10-year anniversary of that. But really, it's not that much different. I mean, they've taken better. Obviously, the hardware, the graphics, all that stuff has gotten better. But live streaming. That was already rampant. Just the general online communities that you see today.
Yeah.
That was on. The different type of, I don't believe Discord was around that, but Reddit was. All these.
Been there forever.
Right, yeah. So it's hard to get nostalgic and wistful about that because we're still in the cyclone of that, if you will. So definitely before that, yeah, I'd probably go with nostalgia right before that because retro to me, my retro would be probably late Super Nintendo, PS1, and 64, and then my yesteryear would be the NES, Super Nintendo. Personally, I didn't grow up with Atari or Odyssey, any of those, so to me that's... I mean, it's hard for me to even... I guess it would be retro as well, but it's kind of like unknown retro, because I wasn't around for it. Yeah.
So... Yeah, well, I feel like we've solved a first world problem here today with the naming of.
Finally, someone's doing it. Yes,
because I always get to these games because when I hear like my kids and they go, "Oh, I'm going to play these retro games," and they pull out a PlayStation 3 game, I'm like, no, that's not retro. That's nostalgic. Yeah.
This is a true story, and this just shows you exactly how age can change perception. I was playing on my Switch, and I was playing Doom, the 1993 game Doom. Everyone's played it, right? Mm-hmm. And I got the chainsaw, and I'm just mowing down imps. Now, my friends at the time, 11-year-old, came over to see what I was playing. Now, I was 10 when Doom came out. And now, when I saw Doom for the first time, like, the viscerality of it, just like the brutality of it, it floored me. I was just like, oh, look at this. I want everything that involves this. He comes over, takes one look, and goes, why do you only play old video games? Oh, man. I just felt my hair instantly go gray. Like, who's chainsawing dudes? Man, that's cool.
Pass me my cane. I'll get over there and get you, young whippersnapper.
Oh, I know, right? Like, I told him to get away from me and don't go on my lawn. So, I mean, it's always going to be a thing. Just like these games that, like, were back then, just awesome. Now they're the games of yesteryear. They're nostalgic. They're retro.
Yeah. So let us start. Well, let me paint the picture on Steam for you and where Steam started back in 2003. So that does feel like a long time ago. And it was basically because we had this period of life where, if everyone that doesn't know what happened before the internet and PCs, there was these disk things that you put in your computer and they would have the games on them, and you didn't download a game like you do today. They would actually you'd put in sometimes up to like 30 discs, or if it was a disc, or if it was a CD, then it might be maybe 5 CDs you put into your computer, and then that would upload all the game onto there, and then you'd play the game. So Steam is almost like the original Netflix, if you will, because they started realizing, hey, this internet thing's come about, and we can put our games on an online store and we can sell our games digitally, and that's how Steam kind of came about. But Steam wasn't the platform it was now. Steam started as actually just for Valve so they could sell their games, because I think they were just sick of shipping out their own games on a disc or using other platforms. Because you've got to understand as well that if you sell it on a PlayStation store, so if Valve is selling Half-Life on PlayStation, they're losing 30% of that game to PlayStation. And they probably gone, hey, there's a bit of money here that we're missing out on. Let's start putting it on our own website and selling it digitally like that. And this is kind of where the PC gaming market started and built from what Valve did here. And so back in 2003, they only started with Half-Life 1 and 2 and Counter-Strike on the store. Well, it was actually 24 when they did that. They released the store slightly before that, like at the end of the year, about now, and then the new games actually didn't come out till early the year after. These games had already, I think Half-Life had already been on PlayStation and Xbox at the time. So not Counter-Strike, but definitely Half-Life had been.
Half-Life came out on the PS2, but that was after the Half-Life was announced on Dreamcast.
Okay.
And that was a big deal at the time, too. Everyone was waiting for that because, it was Dreamcast. And in 2000, Dreamcast was king. I myself actually pre-ordered Half-Life for the Dreamcast at my local EB Games. Ugh. I put $5 down, and it never got officially released. There are bootleg copies out there, but I never got an officially released Half-Life for the Dreamcast.
Whoa. Let's just stop this memory game for 1 second. EB Games, so it was called EB Games before it changed to GameStop?
I made it could have been Babbage's. It could have been Babbage's. I don't know. Honestly, it wasn't GameStop. It was not GameStop.
Okay. We still have EB Games here. We don't have GameStop here. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
This is where. Oh, when you said EB Games, I'm like, are you coming to Australia to get this? Like, oh my god.
Before that, it was Electronics Boutique. That's where I got
that's
my
what we
Nintendo
have still.
64 game. Yeah. No. Oh yeah. No. It was either EB Games or Babbage's. It was before the dark times.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry about that. Sorry, I didn't mean to blow your mind with my Half-Life story. Go on ahead.
So that's why they did that, and then they started realizing that people. There's a lot of other developers out there that had these PC games and they wanted to release these games, and they opened it up to a bigger store for other people to release their games on. But I don't know if you remember back in the day when Steam, you couldn't just put your crappy little indie game onto Steam back then. You had to go through this process of greenlighting the game, which means that what they would do is you would put the game up and you'd put a demo up, and the community would decide if the game was good enough to go onto Steam or if the game was not good enough to go onto Steam. But this eventually got kind of corrupted over time because people would just drum up a big social following and then they would just push their crappy game through on Steam, and some of the good games would miss out. So they had to change this over time. But at the time, that was how you would get your indie game on Steam. You'd have to get greenlit. So in 2005, we had games like Team Fortress was released. A lot more Half-Lives came out. It kind of really started coming along with the way that Steam did this.
If I can go back to that story.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I noticed that in 2005, one thing that finally came out, even though it was already completed years before, was Half-Life Blue Shift. That was originally supposed to be a Dreamcast exclusive.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So when that got canceled, it's nice that they finally released it on. That was the only way first time I ever played it. I had to play it through the PC. I never got to play it through the Dreamcast. I actually played it for the first time through only about 2 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
I have not played any of these other spin-off Half-Lives. they're kind of
Well,
well outside of my realm. Did
no,
you
well,
ever?
I
Sorry.
never played the deathmatch. I never played deathmatch. I don't know how Half-Life deathmatch is, but anything that's a single player Half-Life, I've gone through. Each one is phenomenal. And
Hmm.
for now, I'm just talking about. I'm not even gonna get into Half-Life 2, but Half-Life 1, Opposing Force, Blue Shift, Decay, which is on the PlayStation 2 version, all were great.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So in 2006, that's when Call of Duty actually made its way into the Steam store. Call of Duty 2 was the first one. Now, Call of Duty 2 is the first one to actually have the multiplayer component to it. The first Call of Duty didn't have multiplayer, so that it came out in 2003. It was actually get this, it released on Windows, Mac, Engage. Engage? What's an Engage? I don't even know what that is.
The Nokia N-Gage. Have you ever wanted have you ever wanted a really, 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 really bad portable game system?
Yes.
Of course you do. You should have gone to Nokia Engage. It was really the first attempt at mobile gaming as far as having a phone and a game console together. It's there with like Gamecom as far as that attempt, and that calling it an attempt is all I'm gonna give it. Forward thinking ideas like 100 years ago, actual see through in production and like but yeah, a lot of different games did come out for that, and I do remember hearing about a Call of Duty game coming out for it. I don't know if it was first person though. I hope it wasn't.
No, it was the Call of Duty, the very first Call of Duty released on Engage. That's just crazy. It was mobile. Anyway.
You got to remember too, and I have a feeling Call of Duty people might like throw knives at me for this, but Medal of Honor really kicked off the World War II for like video game craze. Like once that happened, a lot of like, including at the time, even I thought it was just strictly World War II, so I thought of Call of Duty as being somewhat of a Medal of Honor ripoff, which would become ironic years later, of course. But yeah, at the time, I could see it going to Engage. They were trying to sell World War II on systems.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But Call of Duty 2 is the first one that I think has the multiplayer. So that came onto Steam. And this is where Steam really kind of kicked up some steam. And all those online games that we started using our PC to play over the internet were like, they found a home on Steam because that was, you were already online downloading the game. Why not hook up it through the Steam system so you could play online? Like it made 100% of sense. So that was where the 2003 kind of era went through, and Call of Duty. Another thing that we noticed there, Gary's Mod. I can't even remember that game was so old, and it's so. I mean, it's still played today quite crazily a lot.
I've dipped my toes into it. It's so expansive. I don't even like. It's even today kind of hard to explain Gary's Mod to a noob layman like such as myself. But the creativity and everything else that has come from Gary's Mod, careers have been built off Gary's Mod. You know, like that just shows you. And we're just in the early days of Steam, and already it's making legends.
Gary's Mod, I think, was built off the Half-Life engine, so you could just import all of the Source, sorry. And it was actually, you could just import all the Half-Life stuff, and you could import a lot of stuff into it. So it made it, I suppose all the Half-Life fans jumped into Gary's Mod, and then they could start creating their own levels and that type of thing as well. So that's, I think that was kind of the infancy of this build your own kind of video game. And we did a show about this a couple of weeks ago, and I don't think we even mentioned Gary's Mod.
Well, it's kind of hard to because we're talking about single games. And while I would definitely call Gary's Mod a game, I mean, I bought it off the Steam store. You know, back then, I mean, that fine line between something that's modded and an actual legitimate, like, stamped hard video game was a little blurry. I think that's why maybe we may have just skimmed over it, even though we shouldn't have.
Yeah. So then we got to where do we want to go with this? Where do you want to go? You go.
Well, no. Since we're at 2007, I do, and Call of Duty Well, no, right now where we just finished up Call of Duty 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, 2007 is the next one, and this is weird. I found this out for some reason, and I don't know why. And if anyone out there can correct me on this, go for
Yeah.
it. Call of Duty 3 is not on Steam.
No.
Like it's not. Like it's out. Like you can. I want to say maybe 360, like the 360 era. I think it's out for that.
It was on
I looked one
PS2, PS3, Wii, Xbox, Xbox 360, and what is J2ME? I don't even know what that thing is. Let me just see what that is. Oh, it's a Java platform, micro dish. Okay, so it was on a Java platform as well. So
For some reason, Call of Duty 3, and I like Call of Duty 3. It's more World War II.
yeah,
But it's good. It's more Call of Duty for the time. I just was like blown away. Like, why wouldn't that be on Steam? Every other Call of Duty is.
there is a lot of Call of Duty games that do miss out on Steam. Like we'll go over it over the time, but that's not the only one. There's many of them that kind of miss Steam.
Really?
Yeah.
I know Big Red one probably isn't, but that's just like that was kind of made for consoles almost in a way. So I don't think it might be on there. I don't think it is.
Well, especially in like about the 2015s, we're jumping ahead here a little bit, but that's where when Activision bought out Call of Duty, remember they tried to push their Activision store, and then they stopped putting it on Steam. So anyway, let's go back to let's not.
Yeah,
skip
sorry for the interruption. But around this time, one of I think a game that not just sold Steam very well, but actually made people play it on consoles. It was a big hit. It was a big crossover hit. Was Portal. Portal was big, and like that was a big hitter for Steam as well. Valve really, an unexpected breakthrough success. Honestly, probably played more than Half-Life was at the time. I don't know about now, but everyone was into that. People love Portal to this day. They love Portal.
Oh, it's the game that I think everyone wants a third game of. It's Valve has got this very, very weird thing of just doing 2 games and not the third game. So
yeah, right.
That's such a Valve thing, just 2 games only. But BioShock 07, BioShock was massive. Team Fortress 2, Company of Heroes, Hitman. I mean, they're crazy kind of. That was such a good game year.
It must be said too, Half-Life 2, Episode 2, chronologically, that's where we're at in the Half-Life story. Because even Alex is a prequel. So where we are right now, as far as like the Half-Life story goes, it ended in 2007. There's been nothing new to expand on that since.
That's crazy to think too, because like up until like a couple of years ago when they did release Alex, everyone's talked about Half-Life. It is like one of the most talked about games besides Portal, and we haven't even had a game for like nearly 15 years or over 15 years. So that's crazy.
But hey, it's all right because we got BioShock. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of grabbed the ball and kept rolling with it as far as like narrative-driven first-person shooters.
I loved BioShock. BioShock was my favorite. Modern Warfare 4 from Call of Duty. That was really the game that put Call of Duty on the map.
Yep. Oh, I dumped, like, I don't play any Call of Duty today, but I did play that game a lot, online and off.
See, and so this is where it actually started, where if you're an infantry ward guy or a Treyarch guy, I think that's because that was the infantry ward Modern Warfare 4, and I got into Call of Duty the year after in World at War. I loved World at War, and
World at War is good.
And so I never really the Modern Warfares. I was like, skip that year, and I always used to skip that. I was every second year kind of on the other side of the spectrum, where some people were always into the Modern Warfares and all of those type of things. So
yeah. One thing World at War did introduce was the zombies mode.
Oh yeah,
that came out with World at War, which is good that it did, because it's funny to think now, because now World at War is kind of a cult hit in of its own. Mm-hmm. At the time, people were like, because like by the time 2007, 2008 rolled around, World War II games were passe. Like seriously passe. Like people were done with that. You know, we how many times can you survive St. Petersburg or Stalingrad, whatever they called it back then? It gets kind of long in the tooth after a while, with all due respect to actual events. So people kind of poo-pooed on that a bit, but the zombies mode really made it stand out. People love zombies. I love zombies. It was really fun.
Do you think they had a heads up that what Valve were doing? Because that was the same year that Left 4 Dead got released, which is basically the zombies mode of Call of Duty. Well, like it's a better version, but you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if they kind of like talked between developers or something there to kind of go, oh, they're doing this. We need a zombie mode because that's going to blow the hell up. Let's get on board.
I don't necessarily think so, because the mechanics for both games are completely different. Whereas Left 4 Dead, it's almost a level. Get from this point, get to that point. And it changes, and I love how it did it. Admittedly, I played more Left 4 Dead 2, to jump ahead a little, than Left 4 Dead 1. But I did play Left 4 Dead enough. Me and my friend Eric used to play it all the time. But whereas that is kind of like that. With the zombie modes in Call of Duty, you're just in one room, one building, and you just got waves of enemies coming at you for a lengthy period of time.
Well, I think the zombie mode did change over a period of time, because it was all about unlocking different parts and seeing how big you could open up the map over a period of time. And they would hide all these things all over the place, and then you have to try and work your way to these points of the map. To the original zombies that came out at World at War was just, I used to love that more than any of them, because it was just shooting the crap out of zombies. It wasn't as crazy and working stuff out as it is now.
A couple other games of 2008 launched right with World at War. Probably a real big one, and just shows you how things were changing, was Fallout 3. Because for years, the Fallout 2 was, I believe, 99. And Tactics, while celebrated, it wasn't a Fallout game. It wasn't like 1 or 2 where it was story driven. So now you had a new developer with the Bethesda, a completely new system, first person, things like that. I'm sure a lot of people at the time were like, but admittedly back then, Fallout wasn't the franchise it is now. So a lot of people, including myself, jumped on then. And that's kind of like where we started. And that was back in 2008.
Yeah, and obviously Grand Theft Auto started up too around then. So, just to think about all these games are kind of built where games are today. And it's kind of, if Steam wasn't there to make this platform for people to download, and we'd all be console gamers or on the Epic Store.
I gotta say though, remember how a couple weeks ago we talked about, you gave me the question of what like the top year was for me, and I said 1998.
Yeah.
So far when I look, 2007 and 2008.
Oh yeah.
Solid years. Like they kind of step up too. Although I will say this, personally, since we're going to talk about disappointments, I was disappointed with Far Cry 2. It wasn't as good as the first one. It was like the weird birthing between 1 and 3, how 3 is just like almost open world. Pretty much is open world. And Fallout 1's more like level based, but it's just not fun to play. I can't describe it. Whereas Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 were like fun to do, 2 was not. I can't recommend 2, honestly. But that's just me. I could see someone loving Far Cry 2. Did you have a chance to play it?
I hated Far Cry 2. I absolutely I didn't even.
I didn't want to use that
I
word,
didn't want to go
yeah.
to Far Cry 3. Like when Far Cry 3 came out, because I hated Far Cry 2 so much, I was like, am I going to go and get... Everyone's like, oh, it's so much better. Don't worry. And I'm like... And I don't even know if I went to Far Cry 3. I think I almost left it to Far Cry 4 and then came back to Far Cry 3 after I realized that they'd changed everything and made it more something that I liked.
No, yeah. I couldn't... First off, if I'm playing a video game don't give me malaria within 5 minutes of the video game. All right, come on. Now you got to worry about like your medication and stuff. I mean, what's next? Am I gonna play an Assassin's Creed game that you have arthritis now, and you gotta like apply ointment before you decide to climb the Notre Dame? Yeah, come on, wait till later in the game to do that. Don't hit me with it right then and there.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah. Anyway, 2009.
Yeah, here we
I
are.
mean, this is great as well. Like, where are we not doing this? Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh man, I like already. I know one game that you like that's on there. I'll let you talk about it.
Borderlands game.
Yeah.
Borderlands. Yes.
It wasn't Game of the Year yet. It just had come out, but
yes.
that's what's there right now. Borderlands. That was talk about just a different way to shoot things. In a way, like thinking when we were talking about Borderlands back in the day, I thought of it as a good evolution of like Contra. Not so much in game style at all because it's completely different, but just the feeling of like being with your friend and not the game is about shooting things and making them die, but you're not doing it to each other. You're actually doing it to like hordes and waves of enemies coming at you, and that same camaraderie that you got, whether it be you guys going through, the jungles fighting, the alien hordes in Contra, or whether it be Borderlands and you're fighting some, whether psychos, I think they call them psychos.
Yeah.
You're fighting like a gang of them with like a tank there too, that's just absorbing bullets. Very, 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 even I think underappreciated. I think Borderlands changed a lot of things about video games that people just don't acknowledge now. Just the co-optiveness that you see more prevalent today.
No, I agree. I loved that game. I also loved Dragon's Age. I didn't realize that came. Now I'm starting to think 2009's Left 4 Dead 2, Modern Warfare 2, Torchlight, Killing Floor, Fear 2. My God.
Fear. I will say Fear was a series that got better as it went on. Like Fear 3 is the best, I think, but Fear 2 was really, really, really good. You didn't get too many creepy Silent Hill style games that were also a first-person military-esque shooter. Like it was a great marriage. I loved the whole. I got the trilogy, all the systems, including PC. I don't need to, download that. Very fun. And it also had that bullet time effect to it where things slow down. And bullet time in first person is always cool. And it was that era where like they made the bullet time look really cool. Like you saw the rings of air, go like expanding from the bullet, stuff like that. Of all the games I see on this is a good year. Yeah, I like Borderlands. I mean, it's not my toppy, but I played it well and I enjoyed it. Modern Warfare 2. Admittedly, that's when the game.
That's probably the most the one that people love the most. That's probably almost the nostalgic highlight of every Call of Duty fan.
I was already in my mid to late 20s by the time that game came out. So as far as the no Russian thing goes, all right. That's just what you do in the video game. It didn't affect me at all. Had there not been a controversy about it, I wouldn't have said, wait, this is messed up. You're just mowing down innocent people. Yeah, you're down a lot of video games. Like, what are you talking about? Just, it just didn't hit me that hard. But that was a talking point back in the day.
A Dragon's Age for me, that was the one. So I didn't like Skyrim and that as much, but Dragon's Age, I went through and played a whole lot of Dragon's Age. I don't know what year Skyrim came out, but I'm pretty sure it was the year before. Was it 2008, 2006?
It came out November 11th, 2011, and I know that because the advertisement was 111111.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fake. What can I say? I remember things.
But I was just like looking at it going, oh, okay. So Skyrim, it must have been Elder Scrolls 4. I didn't like that. The one before, I don't know when that came out.
Oblivion. I want to say that was. I want to say that must have been 2000, either late 2005, early 2006, because that was an early launch title for the 360. Okay. That was like That was the first when I played that game. That was the first 360 game that I played. That was like, all right, this is next gen. This is why you just spent the money on this system. Not that it
Okay.
was a knockout game, even though it was great. Just the scope of it. And I had played Morrowind, blew it away. Like I was like, wow, here we go. I can get funky with this.
So, yeah, well, Elder Scroll, I just couldn't get obsessed with the story in that. But Dragon's Age, I found that, I don't know, that grabbed me way more. I enjoyed Dragon's Age a lot. And Left 4 Dead 2, that was just such a highlight.
Yeah, it was a pure sequel in the moment. Like it didn't reinvent the wheel; it just shined it up and made it run a hell of a lot better. So I did play more Left 4 Dead 2 than I did Left 4 Dead 1. So I'm more. I know that guy. I love the hotel sequence there. That was my favorite thing in the world. It still is. I should see if I can find anyone that's willing to play it online with me at some point. I do own it, so.
Okay. Well, we could get people. Someone will sign up.
Yeah, so someone wants to leave me a comment. I'll give you we'll hook up. We'll play some
But yeah, my favorite game, probably my favorite highlight of the Call of Duty series came out 2010. Black Ops, Call of Duty Black Ops. Absolutely, I loved that. That was, I don't know. That's when I thought it was good. It was kind of like this modern warfare, but it was, I don't know, a bit more fun for me.
I heard, I never, by this time, full disclosure, I had gotten off the Call of Duty train. I keep up with it because I got family that plays it. I got friends that play it.
Yeah.
So of course it's got to be part of my life. But I always appreciate Black Ops because I always heard that had somehow like a dark humor element to it. Like there were still serious spots, you still had to talk to Richard Nixon once or twice.
Yeah.
But for the most part, there was kind of it almost didn't take itself as seriously as the Modern Warfare series did.
I feel like that's very true. I feel like that's very true. But also, it was a bit more gritty. The Modern Warfare seemed so clinical, where this seemed a little bit more gritty, and that's what I liked about it. Like that feeling of, yeah, we're going into battle. We're going to really, we're going to get stuffed up, but other people, then I can. In turn, we'll kill some other people. It's a bit of both. That gritty feeling.
I'm not gonna lie though. I'm looking at the rest of 2010. There are some good ones in here, but there's a lot of games that, while good, just like BioShock 2. I understand that you liked BioShock 2.
I love BioShock 2.
Yeah, I love BioShock 2 as well. But
I thought it was better than 1. I thought they just got everything right. By the time they got to BioShock 2, they just really made everything right.
No, yeah, it was the stories and the characters weren't as engaging as 1, or spoiler alert, Infinite, for me at least.
And I know you love Just Cause 2.
Oh yeah. And I gotta reiterate with the Just Cause series, I tried. I really tried to sit down, throw it in. All right, hook me, and it just wouldn't. I have 2, 3, and 4. Because I had that much hope that Just Cause would because I tried one sort of came out, got a free T-shirt, which was nice, and then whatever it is, 13 years later, I'm trying to play it again. It just didn't work out, but it does have its fan base. People do like the Just Cause series enough that warrant a sequels.
Well, I actually liked the Battlefield Bad Company 2. I really enjoyed that I didn't really like the online component as much, but I really enjoyed the story mode in that. That was probably one of my favorite stories to play through. Medal of Honor that came out that year, I thought that was good, well done. But if Battlefield and Call of Duty didn't come out, they had no chance. They had no chance.
That's what I was talking about earlier when I said it would get ironic quick. Just the fact that what was the king of realistic military shooters, World War II military shooters, but still the standard. Just 10 years later, man. It's a copy. It was really depressing. It bummed me out. I never wanted to play Medal of Honor, the new one, anyway. But I was like, you see, it's like seeing a loved team that was just beating all the competition become minor league.
Yeah. So no, I thought it was. Yeah, I don't
And
know.
to clean it up, I like New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas came out that year. I for some reason it's a lot of people's favorite Fallout, and it's not mine. But it was fun. I enjoyed the characters in it, and I like the factions. The story, I think, for Fallout New Vegas might be the best one of them. Mafia 2 was really good. That was another one of those games where, like, I looked at it, I looked at the cutscenes, the music, the way it's shot, and it looked very classic. I liked it way better than Mafia 1. Mafia 1 was clunky. Mafia 2 was smooth. And then Mass Effect 2, which, I don't care what anyone says, it is the most overrated legendary video game of all time. It's not bad, but god damn it. Like, especially when it came out, people considered it a high bench watermark. I remember beating it and I was like, really? It was a solid B plus on my end, but by no means, like, it was winning I'm looking at this. New Vegas is better than it. Mafia 2 is better than it. BioShock 2 is better than it. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on all of those things.
That's just my opinion. I know sometimes I go on these rants.
Well, no, it's fine. And so that was almost the end of for me, that's kind of like where the triple A's peaked. Because after this is where the indie games start coming into the Steam store. And this is where indie games, the games that like are not $100 a game or not $60 a game, these games that are like the smaller end of town actually started like flooding onto the store and taking over the store. Games like Terraria, Magica,
Rift.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing, though, and it must be said, while this is when the indie games really start to take on Steam, I don't think really was the innovator to that, because while we're looking at this list, I'm noticing a lot of like classic indie games, but they didn't come on Steam, at least when this came out, like Limbo. That was 2010.
Yeah.
And maybe it did come out on Steam in 2010, I don't know, but I always think of Limbo. I think of my Xbox 360, like right away.
100%.
Like that, like that was my. They've of course updated. Now you can get from Switch.
It was an Xbox exclusive. This when it first came out.
I forget that Playdead, I believe, was the they were like a European company. Phenomenal game. Like, when I think that was the game that kind of won me over on smaller budget games. Games did not need to be these high definition, glossy, showcase. It didn't need to have some like gimmicky, controls. It could just be a plain 2D platformer, tells a very minimal story, just be about the game. Yeah, and I love it. I still love it. That might be, I don't know if I would call it my favorite indie game, but
I will call it my favorite introduction to indie games. It's definitely the one that you remember when someone says, "What's the first indie game you played?" That's probably on my list of the top one or two that I think about for sure.
No, but you are right though. By the time 2011 rolled around, indie games were a thing. You had a couple of them.
Yeah.
Like by then there were a couple that were able to break through and just be known just as well as the others.
Well, yeah, you'd have like these. The store started splitting up a bit by that stage. It was like you either had your top end games that you'd saved up all year to buy, or you had these smaller games that you would just play, and they were just fun little indie games that you only paid a couple of dollars for, and you were fine with that because that you weren't expecting this massive game, and it made it easier to kind of game, especially I think as people get older, they tend to be more interested in games that don't take 100 hours to finish, because they're time poor, and so a smaller game can sometimes suit them.
And that's, I don't know if I want to call it a problem, because if the game's fun enough, more of a fun thing is always great. But I feel that too many video games nowadays are just like,
here's 100 hours.
Yeah, like it just here's like the rest of your friggin' year. I hope you had nothing planned. It's just at this point, that's why I kind of liked the Resident Evil and the Dead Space remakes, because I knew they'd be reasonably tiered. I mean, longer than your older games, sure, but still only like a 4 hour jaunt. Like that's nice. It's nice to be able to just play a game and just be like, there, it's done. I can move on with myself. When you play something today like Tears of the Kingdom, it's like, oh man.
Well,
like I gotta go back there.
Oh, they're just today. It was announced they're just remastering the first 3 Tomb Raider games are coming out on PlayStation.
So, yeah, and I think that's great because at first I thought it was the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider. I thought it was that series coming out for Switch, which I'm for. I thought they were good. The third one wasn't that great, but the first 2 were good. But when I heard that it was the PlayStation ones, I was like, ooh.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was excited too.
They are going to have to rework the controls. I recently played Tomb Raider 2. It plays like a PlayStation 1 game from 1997. It's not rough. It's not like super rough. I beat the first level, but it's unless you're used to that kind of thing, you're not going to have a good time with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry I went on that little...
No. I mean, I'm all about Tomb Raider. 20... let's go into 2012.
The year the world ended. Remember that?
Oh.
That was different. Yeah, that was... So these were the last games that would be ever coming out ever. First off, Black Ops 2.
I love that.
Yeah, and it was cool that it became its own franchise. Max Payne 3... awesome game. Awesome
That was
game.
actually a really good game.
I love the soundtrack to that game too. I thought that game had one of the best soundtrack that goes with the game that I ever played. It was a phenomenal score.
I was really surprised that like Rockstar built that.
Yeah,
because that's really away from. I mean, I suppose they used a fair bit of what they do in Grand Theft Auto to kind of go there, but they don't normally do things like that. They normally kind of stick to their franchises, definitely nowadays anyway.
I'm not quite sure. I know Rockstar published Max Payne 2 for the consoles. I don't know if they did it for PC as well. And as far as I know, Remedy still developed it, and they also developed Max Payne 1, although I think that might have been a different publisher. But yeah, once it came time to make Max Payne 3, it was in-house for Rockstar. I forget which studio. Could be Vancouver. I think it might be Vancouver. Could be San Diego, even though I know they do Red Dead. But I gotta say, I think Max Payne 3 is the best of the Max Paynes, and it doesn't reinvent the wheel as far as the gameplay goes. It's still run around shooting, slowing time down, all that stuff. But just the story and the way the story's told, I loved. Borderlands 2 came out.
That was the best of the Borderlands. If you're going to play Borderlands, just start there.
There.
Yeah, it's the best.
Nice. Torchlight 2, I've never played that. I've vaguely heard about it and mentioned. XCOM, Enemy Unknown. That was a decent revival, actually, of the original XCOM series. And
I could never get into that game. I just could not. It was just too strategy based for me.
See, I couldn't get into that game, but I like the Mario Rabbids series, which kind of borrows a little liberally from XCOM, so they did good on that. Dishonored got ruined for me because I read somewhere that in order to get the very best ending, you have to not kill anybody. Now, I'm not that bloodthirsty in a video game, but I mess up. I might accidentally press the wrong button and snap their neck instead of knocking them out. So you mean to tell me if I'm playing through the game and actually press the wrong button, now I get the bad ending? Because of that, I never even bothered to play through the game. I was like,
play through it, and I thought it was a really good stealth game, and it was trying to promote the whole stealth thing. I think Dishonored came out around the period that all Metal Gear Solid kind of had a dip by about now, and it was kind of on the end of its run, and I think Dishonored kind of picked up that torch. That's you have to kind of quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. When did Metal Gear Solid 4 come out? I'm pretty sure.
That came out. Ooh, that was like when PS3 came out. Metal Gear Solid 4 came out early enough that it was the Spider-Man font on PlayStation 3 and not like the regular PlayStation font that we all know.
Okay.
So that must have been 2006, 2007 when that came out. And hell, even by then, Splinter Cell was taking a lot of its heat, and Assassin's Creed would come later. Although that's not so much like staying in the shadows; that's more staying in the crowd. And I
Yeah.
heard that mechanic-wise, Dishonored is good with the stealth. But I've never been a huge stealth guy to begin with, so once you include the fact that, you have to really bust your ass to try to get the good ending like that, I was just like, you know what?
It's a pretty hard game, Dishonored. I think
Yeah.
to do it very stealthy, you'd have to
I'd
play
rather
many hours.
I'd rather die a whole bunch of times
Mm.
than have to go with something like that. So yeah. Counter Strike. Counter Strike Global Offensive. That's kind of where they're out at with Counter Strike right now. Less.
Well, do you talk about that now or later? This is one reason that PC games don't age and they don't become retro games like we're used to with the consoles, because things like Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and so that's what, nearly it's 11 years old now, nearly 12 years old, and they keep updating the assets to that. So all of a sudden, if you played the original Counter-Strike Global Offensive, it looked nothing. It looks absolutely nothing like it does now. Now it looks like it's a game made last year, and they keep on just updating the assets, updating all the things, and you just keep on getting an update. And a lot of these PC games, especially the online ones, will do that same thing where they'll just keep on updating. And so the game doesn't age like the original console games would age. And I think this is something that PCs really kind of innovated on, especially the online component of it.
Well, that's the way it's always been with the PC. The PC's always been its own beast separate from the consoles, and the PC gamers will remind you of that whenever they get a chance. It's always just, it's not, in a way, it doesn't evolve, because evolving would mean completely changing. It just gets better. Even I, as a strict console gamer, I have to admit that the PC's phenomenal at doing that. At making, it doesn't make what's old new again. It just doesn't make anything old. Because it's always updating. It's always something different.
That's kind of what I hate about the PC, though, is because you turn it on and you go to play that game and you're updating a lot more. Not as much these days, but definitely in these early, in the 2010s, there was, I think every time I turned it on, I had a new update for my graphics card and all that kind of stuff. You would just be like, again, we just updated yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, it goes with the tech. No system to play your game is perfect. And that's just the cross to bear for PC players, I suppose.
So, in 2013, Call of Duty Ghosts came out. Now that was one of the more controversial of the Call of Duty series, not because it had problems, but it definitely started dividing fans if the series was going on the right direction, the wrong direction. And people were like, I think that was kind of the end of the golden age of the Call of Duty franchise almost, is when Ghosts came about. And
see, and I got to say this right now, the system that we're doing to look at these games might be a little skewed, because I'm looking at the 2013 games right now, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not seeing a whole lot of good ones here I played, but one game I know for a fact came out in 2013, and actually, I don't think it came out for PCs yet, so that's probably why it's on the list, was Grand Theft Auto 5. That's hitting its 10-year anniversary. I think that hits its 10th anniversary 2 days from this broadcast.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That did release, I'm pretty sure, on console. I think it was a PlayStation exclusive, and then it came out to Xbox a year later, and then it came to PC a year after that. So we're probably 2 years away from...
Because I'm looking at a lot of these, and like, speaking of games that become services of their own, 2 are right off the bat: Warframe and Dota 2. Two games that are still cranking to this day. I mean, I think by the time 2014 rolled in, that was the norm. Games just did that. They just became ubiquitous games, and here you go. We're gonna keep it up as long as the servers let us.
Payday 2, I think that was it's still very popular. Payday 3's not that far away. So that game has lasted 10 years before they've done the next version of it. That's how it's got so many DLC, so many updates. And DayZ, I never played that. But that was
Yeah, like I'm looking at these. These are like not so much indie titles, but definitely 2013 was definitely the year of the niche title. Yeah, a lot of niche games here, like Kerbal Space Program and Total War Rome 2. Like just particulars of that. If you were a Steam exclusive player in 2013. When we got to 2014, though, I think things became a little bit more like AAA-ish again. Right off the bat here, we got Shadow of Mordor. That was, it's considered to be the best Lord of the Rings game by many.
that was so funny. That's such a funny. So they stole from Assassin's Creed the run animations and all the animations for that game, and they had to do some kind of deal to be able to keep it all. But it was basically built from parts of other games that they just chucked together. And I mean, it's its own game, but that's what I remember about it.
It's more of a game loaf, you know? It's a real video game made in form out of other video games.
It was such a good game like that.
Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. So by this time,
well, Advanced Warfare, I just interrupted that, sorry, but Advanced Warfare, that was trying to compete with, I don't know if you remember at the time, Titanfall came out on the consoles. Do you ever remember Titanfall? That was made by some of the guys that made Call of Duty. They made their own little studio and they went away and started Titanfall. And Titanfall introduced things like wall running and obviously the big Titans. So that's where Advanced Warfare had these like wall running attributes and things that you'd never see in Call of Duty again but they were trying to compensate for Titanfall coming out at the time.
I'll talk more about Titanfall once Titanfall 2 pops up on here, because I will talk in depth about Titanfall 2.
Yeah.
But for the record, I never played Titanfall 1, but I was interested in it only because by this time the Infinity Ward, quittings had happened. So it interested me. The thing that stopped me from playing is, unfortunately, at the time, I want to say it was a Xbox One exclusive, and I got a PS4 first. I didn't get an Xbox One till shortly before the Xbox One X came out.
Yeah. Well, I did have the Xbox One, and I played so much. I actually went away from Call of Duty to Titanfall because I was so obsessed with Titanfall.
Now, Titanfall 1, that's multiplayer only, right?
Yeah, that's correct. There was no story. I think they were trying to rush it to some extent because Call of Duty had got whiffed of this wall running ability and they didn't want to seem like they were copying Call of Duty. They were just trying to get it out before Call of Duty could come out and steal their kind of ideas.
It's quite similar to Time Splitters, 10 years before. If you play Time Splitters 1, the story mode of it is very bare. It's like barely. It's more of a multiplayer match with bots. It's to the point where you can actually make your own story levels in Time Splitters 2.
Yeah.
But the basic ones. When you got to Time Splitters 2, now you had stories that had it felt like single player at that moment. Maybe it's similar to that. Because once Titanfall 2 came out, which we'll get into, it did have a legitimate single player.
Yeah, that's correct. Borderlands pre-sequel was out that year. That was the oxygen one where you had to go around finding oxygen, and it kind of ruined the game. I never played through all of that game. That's the only Borderlands I've never played through. So,
no, there's a couple good ones here. To South Park: Stick of Truth, one of the best adaptations of a TV or any media to a video game, because it looks like the cartoon, just exactly. You are controlling an episode of South Park. Love that. Watch Dogs.
I liked it.
Yeah, I played. I thought it was cool with the cameras and hacking and stuff like that.
It's almost feels like it's come to life, that game. Like I feel like the world is similar to what Watch Dogs envisioned like all these years ago. Yeah. Like I'm scared of half the things that bring up in Watch Dogs.
Right, yeah, like cameras everywhere and stuff.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I've never touched Demon's Souls. I've never touched any of the Dark Souls games. Dark Souls 2 came out that year. I've never touched it, but it does have its fan base, so definitely significant.
Yeah.
Oh, Far Cry 4. I like Far Cry 4. Yeah, Far Cry 4.
I remember Far Cry. The thing with Far Cry 4 that I remember the most is I bought it on a PC and my friend had it on PC and we wanted to go through the game co-op together. But for some reason, that you would never spawn into the game together at the same time. He'd be like, I'm right here and I'm standing right there, and he was not there. There was so many glitchy bugs, especially on PC for that game, that it took them years to fix it. So that was my experience with Far Cry 4. But the story on its own, that was the one where you start off in this room at the start, right? At this, the dinner table at the start.
Yeah, and it's funny. Have you ever done it where if you just sit there and you don't
you finish the game?
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
I thought that was like one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the guy that's just put that in, and then that scene's come out, and then he's had to run off and
To the bathroom,
like and
oh,
then come back and the game's finished.
Yeah, like I'll just let it talk. I'll come back. Everyone will be gone, and I'm just gonna go pee. And then you get back, and it's like the credits. What's that? Like what happened? What did I do?
Yeah. Oh, how did I do that? Oh, yeah. I can imagine that happening to someone.
Moving on to 2015. Ooh, actually, I mentioned it. Came out in 2013, but finally in 2015, Grand Theft Auto 5 came to the PC.
Yeah,
took a while, but it got there.
It was 1 year exclusive on the 1 year exclusive PlayStation, 1 year exclusive Xbox. Then it got to all the others.
Yeah. Metal Gear Solid. I don't know what the hell happened. Yeah, right. Yeah, just. But anyway,
Ark was massive. Ark was kind of like this indie game. I wouldn't say it was a complete indie game, but it wasn't a big studio. It was a smaller studio that when that came out.
I never played. Was it worth playing? Because now that I'm looking at it, I kind of got a Turok vibe from one of it, but like I'm sure it's completely different than Turok. So
it's kind of like Rust or something where you're kind of building bases, but there's dinosaurs, and so it's kind of one of those things where you kind of with your community trying to build a little community, and you're going out, you kill some dinosaurs, and I don't know. Some people like it, some people I'm not that big of a fan.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, Rocket League definitely has its fans. City Skylines definitely has its fans. But
Rocket League is a weird one, only in the way that it came out and it was a paid game, and then Epic bought that, and Epic made it free because they wanted to take the same game model as what they did with so Fallout and all. Far Cry. Well, no, Fallout. Oh, Fortnite. I got there. Okay. They wanted to take the same way. Yeah. But they wanted to take the same way as they did with that. And so they kind of pissed off a lot of their fans when they made it free. It's a really hard thing. If I paid for a game and now it's free, that's a really hard thing to do and get right. And they did annoy a lot of people, but they got a whole new fan base after that. So it had a second win.
I never actually bought the game, but I did. I downloaded it on my Switch of all things because my nephews were playing it. And it's fun. It's an enjoyable game. I just never got like huge into it. And really, the only other game notably that came out that year was Fallout 4, which it hurts me that people just. It doesn't seem like anyone likes not necessarily in the mainstream. It's just that like anytime you get a little like, what's the one game that disappointed you? You always got that guy that got to squeeze them and be like, Fallout 4 sucked. You know, and I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I get it. But I loved Fallout 4. It's not just because it was regional. It's just it's a fun game. It was a game that I enjoyed making settlements. I enjoyed making towns for my people. I enjoyed going out on missions and taking stuff. I enjoyed rummaging for crap and junk so I can make my armor and weapons better. You know, I really liked it a lot. Honestly, that's probably like the reason why I'm enjoying Starfield so much, because it just reminds me so much of that. So anytime someone says, yeah, and I get it, like, you know, especially if you're a purist, that's like Fallout 2 is the best Fallout. But it was my favorite game of that year.
Black Ops 3. That was the one that actually got me back into Call of Duty after like a little bit of a hiatus away from the Call of Duties. I think it's by the time they got to Black Ops 3, that's when they started cheating a little bit, where for so many years before that, they'd bring out map packs for the levels, and you could buy the map packs and play extra levels. And it kind of ruined the game a little bit because the people that bought the original game and didn't have the map packs, those levels were getting played a lot, and then the map pack levels would only get played a little bit. But in the map packs, they started bringing out their previous levels that they'd already designed, and then they just reskin them. And this is, I think, Black Ops 3 was one of the first ones to start the reskinning of their old levels and maps that they'd turned them into something else. And it was always kind of fun to see how they'd changed something into something, but you knew it. You could just, as soon as you got there, you're like, oh yeah, I know where I'm going here. And then it was weird, but fun.
Moving on to 2016. It definitely it's got some good ones. Actually, here's one that came out in 2016, No Man's Sky. And speaking of building on games, I think that's like the poster boy for, hey, maybe a game can get better if you wait a couple years. Because No Man's Sky, I played a little bit when it first released because my friend had it. Oof. Yeah, I was not impressed at all.
Well, the thing that really hurt that game was when two gamers, they made the game and it was co-op, as they said, and two gamers spent. And so what happened is they would have a point in the game where your friend was, which was 1 trillion light years away, and then you were here. They would spawn you in completely different opposite ends of the game, and then they would make you go, oh, okay, I'll find my friend, which was like 5 days of travel to get to your friend. But gamers being gamers, some guy got to that point where his friend was supposedly, and his friend wasn't there. His friend was nowhere to be seen. And this made it onto YouTube and all that. And they actually came out and admitted, we didn't actually add co-op. We just added a fake co-op kind of thing. And everyone just lost their crap and just like, whoa, you can't just add a fake friend. So then they decided to make it real. And then once they fixed that component up, that's what really started the revival of No Man's Sky.
Well, I mean, and it goes back to saying it's great that they did that, but at the end of the day, it's kind of shitty to, tell you something's going to be happening and not let you know it's not, and release it and have people buy it. You know what I mean? That's false advertising as far as I'm concerned. Great they rectified it. Awesome they did, but the intention was, I think, kind of crappy.
Yeah, no, I think, well, the guy that made, the head developer for that game, you've got to imagine there was only like 4 or 5 people that made No Man's Sky at the time, the original release. And so there was a small amount, and the head guy, he completely hated co-op, but everyone was requesting it. So he's like, yeah, we'll put a fake co-op on. That'll make everyone happy. And yeah, it didn't.
Well, you're trying to make, the boss hat, you try and do this. Don't half-ass a lot of things. Whole-ass one thing.
Yeah.
Either say, yeah, it's co-op and it's actual co-op, or no, of course it's not co-op. Either one is good. You don't need co-op, but you don't need to deceive people as well.
And one of the biggest games of all time, indie games of all time, I should say, Stardew Valley came out 2016.
Oh God, that is a franchise, and see that like you got these indie games that are just like major franchises in them themselves, and yes, Stardew Valley's a big one. I saw someone the other day at the mall just wearing a Stardew Valley T-shirt.
Yeah, maybe one guy. It's probably made, I don't know, $50 million or something. That game, it's ridiculous.
All it takes is one person, man.
Mm-hmm. And that's is that when they rebooted the Tomb Raider series, or is this?
No, that's the second one.
Yeah.
So I once again, you said it yourself. Consoles might have exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come out that year. I liked Rise of the Tomb Raider. It was good. It wasn't as good as the first one, but it was definitely better than the third one. So it was worth the play. I enjoyed it. Other than that, though, you got Civ 6 came out. Civ is always a good one. Dead by Daylight, that's another one of those games that just a lot. By this time, now we're at the games that are updating to this day. You can't really call these classic games anymore. These are games that just update all the time.
And get
You know,
DLC and keep making money on top of money, you know?
well, yeah, at the very least, and going into 2017, speaking of indie games, one of my favorite ones, probably not anyone else's because it's so hard, is Cuphead. I loved Cuphead. I thought Cuphead was. I still do. I like Cuphead. And that's another game that I don't think really got so much updates as well. Just like I think it got DLC down the road, and I believe a sequel came out or is coming out.
Yeah.
Could be wrong on that. Maybe someone could help me on.
I think it is coming out. I think there is a sequel on that one.
Now, here's a weird game though that's actually advertised on this list. It came out the year of where we at now, 2017.
Yeah.
Tekken 7. And it's funny I say that because particularly fighting games, to me, I don't imagine playing fighting games on a PC.
No.
And it has nothing to do with the controls or anything. It just doesn't fit well. The first place you go is arcade, but since the arcade's dead, I think it just became the console thing. Even back in like '93, you could have thrown Mortal Kombat on a PC in '93. It'd have to be a decently run PC, but you could do it. But I don't remember everyone even the talks of it coming out then. And even today,
you're right.
I mean, Mortal Kombat 1 is coming out for PC, or at least I'm almost 95.
Just quickly on that, you can get the Jean-Claude Van Damme character in Mortal Kombat 1. Do you find that almost sacrilegious, considering he was the Street Fighter?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like when yes and no. Yes and no. Because on one hand, he is in Street Fighter, but is it any more sacrilegious to say Spawn was in Soul Calibur 2 and now Spawn's in Mortal Kombat? You know what I mean? I like it. I think that's great. Hell, I wouldn't mind seeing Christopher Lambert in a Street Fighter game. Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter can merge. That don't matter. I don't think it's sacrilegious, although I could see people maybe taking offense to it. I'm a big fan of JCVD. So
Yeah.
I think he should be in everything. He should be in Stardew Valley, somewhere. Just get him in that game. I'll enjoy it.
Now, there's also I'm not sure if this came out on console first, but I'm pretty sure it came out on all of them. The Assassin's Creed Origins. That's really the Assassin's Creed that I really enjoyed that game. That was it was an RPG version of Assassin's Creed, but just loved it. Like it was kind of this whole Assassin's Creed franchise was getting a bit old to me, and then that came out and just revitalized a lot of things about it. You had to kind of look at it like it wasn't an Assassin's Creed game though to enjoy it, I think.
Yeah, but by the time Assassin's Creed Origins came out though, I jumped off the train after I completed Assassin's Creed 4. So I didn't play Liberation, I didn't play Rogue, I didn't play any of those. And so by the time Origins came, I heard about Origins coming out, I was like, all right, it's just more Assassin's Creed, and I haven't touched an Assassin's Creed since.
I would
honestly.
recommend doing Origins. I'd recommend that for you, because
If I enjoy Origins, would I enjoy Valhalla?
I think Valhalla is not as good as Origins. I think there's just too much. Like it's just getting so RPG and so much harder. Origins was just a nice size RPG too. It was more. It felt a good size. You know how we were just talking about big games? Valhalla is like double the size. So you would probably like Valhalla, but there's some other parts of Valhalla that I think make the game a lot bigger than it needs to be. Where Origins was just this perfect size and I just enjoyed. There was also a Final Fantasy kind of Easter egg in there. If you solved this little puzzle, you got one of the Final Fantasy camel things that you could ride around instead of a horse. That was fun.
Chocobo? Chocobo, wasn't it?
Yeah. You can you can ride that around.
All right.
Yeah.
One game before we leave 2017 though, I was kind of hoping to get maybe your take on this. PUBG's Battlegrounds.
I never played it.
Neither have I.
Like those kind of big open things. They're just not me.
But I remember like PUBG was huge for like a week. Like for just a week though. And then the Fortnite update came out. people forget that Fortnite wasn't originally Fortnite. It was actually more of like a regular shooter. It wasn't a battle royal yet.
No.
Until it became a battle royal is when it really took off. And like it happened around the same time PUBG came out, and for all intents and purposes, Fortnite just did what PUBG did, but like more fun.
Mm-hmm.
So PUBG, it still has its dedicated fan base, but I feel like a lot of the luster of PUBG kind of went away after that. I remember seeing my friend play it, and it looked fun. It looked competent, but you didn't really hear too much about it once Fortnite hit the scene.
Well, also Call of Duty brought out their battle royale version as well.
Warzone, which would, that would just take, everyone did. Apex Legends would come out, and it just seems every time a new big battle royal game would come out, PUBG would just, go further down the list.
Yeah,
of being
PUBG didn't look nearly as good as all of these ones that we talked about. It was done by a smaller studio as well, and I mean, it was just the idea, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is a cool idea," but yeah, I would like to say that Call of Duty WW2 World War II, I liked that as well. There's a lot of hate for that game. It's not the most popular. But and the only reason I liked it because my introduction to Call of Duty was the World at War, and this was just felt like a nice kind of throwback to that.
Yeah, by that time, what was old was new again. World War II had been kind of away for a decade at this point, practically.
Yeah,
and it was nice to come back. I agree. No, I never played through it. I do have it. I haven't actually gotten through it yet. But just to see it kind of like recognize and go back to its roots, I enjoyed.
Yeah. I agree.
And it was very ballsy, of the company to actually pull off that move, because they could have played it safe. It just had, another Modern Warfare game that, more or less they're doing now. But just to see them take like a risk like that, I think it was great.
Well, I remember the ad on the television at the time. I don't know if you got the same ads as we had, but it had like this one dude, and he had his car, and he drives over to the office and picks up the other dude, all like older dudes, like late 30s kind of dudes. So they were appealing to like us, the guys that did play the original World at War, and they're like, get the crew back together, get World at War World War II for Call of Duty. And it's like, yeah, it does feel like it's got this whole World at War kind of feel to it, and they nailed the advertising too. But
it was.
The young people hated it. They're like, this is too old, too slow for me.
We were just talking about those damn kids.
Those damn kids, they hated it.
Yeah, whether it's we'll call it World at War or Doom, they don't like it.
No.
Well. But, just the fact that and they still bought it. They still played it. They just grumbled about it more.
Yeah.
Moving on to 2019 now. Honestly, remember how we were talking about when retro, nostalgic, all that? We're well into now. By the time 2019's out, it's now. We are there. These are the games that are out now. Because I'm looking here, Jedi Fallen Order came out that year. Great game. That was a very big breath of fresh air to Star Wars games in general.
Oh, you missed 2018. You missed 2018.
We did?
Yeah, 2018. We just got an. This is where a lot of these monsters came into games where you get like Monster Hunter was kind of the start of this, where you get a crew together and go and try and take down a big monster. Hunter was the same, I think, as that too.
Like the big one versus many kind of mechanic coming into play.
One versus the big computer monster.
The first time I ever experienced anything like that was with Destiny. I remember I was playing Destiny. It wasn't my first time playing, but it was when I was playing Destiny, and I was just in a area, and all of a sudden, oh no, there's a big monster. Everyone or robot, whatever. I forget what it was that you were trying to kill, but everyone kill it, and I was like, oh, okay, so I'm helping people in real time. Let's do it. It felt like World of Warcraft, but way more streamlined. And looking at Monster Hunter, it seems like that's, more or less the flavor. Just, it's a lot more of a spontaneous co-op, if you will.
Mm-hmm. The Raft, that was a big indie game as well. It was kind of where you built this raft, and then you go to visit islands and you collect little bits of stuff from the islands and keep building your raft up. So it's just like a loot and plunder type of game. and build your raft up and kind of keep floating around and getting bigger and bigger and surviving. And that whole survival thing really did take off probably a bit earlier than this, but Raft was one of the better indie games that did it.
You know, sometimes when I talk to you, I feel like a certain sense of lament on how AAA games are kind of not necessarily going down in quality, but just like they're not as impactful as they should be. And I see three here that I think fit that very well. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which it didn't have nearly as much of the same hype and build up as Origins did. Origins was like quite up there. Odyssey didn't feel like it got any of that. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which, like I said, was the worst of that trilogy. I've never finished it. It's a chore to play through. It's not hard. It's just a chore. And then Final Fantasy 15, which does have its fans, but it was just so. And I don't want to say different because you're still a bunch of spiky-haired young protagonists, enjoying youth and the ability to fight monsters and whatnot. That's more or less the point. It's been since 8, but it didn't have the same. It didn't even have the impact that 16 recently had, as far as I can tell. So I think this is when a bit of the veneer of the AAA game really starting to like rub off.
I would say Assassin's Creed Odyssey is better than Origin, but it just felt like they reskinned Origin.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that Shadow of the Tomb Raider was better than Rise, but once again, if you're not implementing it as well as the original, then what's the point? I think I see now why I skipped over 2018. really, like, oof. I'm sorry. 2018 was a rough. What? I'm trying to think of anything good on console.
So 2019's only just kind of, just like it feels like a couple of years ago because it was, but that's when Xbox started putting their stuff onto Steam, which was so unconsole. I mean, PlayStation had been doing it for a few years now, but Xbox really started coming to this party too, realizing that they're missing out on a whole heap of game sales by not throwing it through Steam.
And to tell you the truth, I would really like to see the favor reversed. I would love to see Valve go ahead and you don't even make a new game. Just make like a Half-Life Legacy collection for Switch, PS5, Xbox Series X, where you got Half-Life 1, all its add-ons, Half-Life 2, all its add-ons. Pretty them up a bit, if you need to, but you can even have just the original ones on there and just release it to the consoles. It costs them licensing fees and shit, but like as far as production fees, it would cost them next to nothing, you think?
Yeah.
I mean, they're putting their stuff on your shit, you put your stuff on their shit.
I think Valve's making it more money than Xbox probably, so I think they just don't care any much. I wonder if their biggest competitor would be Epic, the Epic store. And the strange thing about that is the Epic gives you a free game every week and people kind of go there just to collect their free game, but no one actually plays on the Epic store. It's like, we'll just try it on there, then we'll go and buy it over in Steam. It's like,
I want to say it was Diablo 4. I could be wrong on this if anyone wants to correct me, but I think that only got released on the Epic store, if I'm not mistaken. And honestly, like the only thing I've ever signed up for, I forget the game. I did sign up for Epic just to get something on here. Even then, it was through Steam, So once I saw that, I was like, and then even to this day, I still haven't picked up Diablo 4. I'll probably end up just getting it for PS5 or something. But it is interesting to talk about Epic Store because I think that's Steam's biggest competitor, really, more than GOG at least.
Definitely, and also, do you even remember that Ubisoft has got their own store? And
no.
Yeah, they do, and they give out a whole heap of free Assassin's Creeds and stuff like that as well. But
the only reason why I know about that, though, you are right, that jogs my memory. Actually, we may have discussed this early in this series, where they were talking about deleting some Ubisoft accounts.
Yeah,
and that people that may have gotten their stuff through the store, they weren't gonna, and there was an uproar, and they clarified that that's not the case. But yeah, that was. I remember reading that. I was like, Wow, I'm glad I never got anything off the Ubisoft store.
Yeah, and also EA is they're I mean EA seems to be the most hated of all the studios in the gaming world. If anyone wants to pick on a company, it's EA, because of their in-app I think, did they invent the in-app purchases? But EA is a real, like, we might do another whole thing on EA. Maybe we'll do an EA show because they've got some really interesting history and I find it fascinating. But yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, though, it is interesting seeing Halo on the PC. You know, that is different. Of course, Red Dead 2 came out that year. We're definitely into more modern games that you might reasonably be playing now. Like, and I'm not just talking about like the constant service games. I've heard that one. That one's good too. By the time 2020 came in, and this is when the pandemic hit, in case anyone forgets that, it's actually funny. One game they're not showing here, but they mentioned in the write-up that it came out in 2020 was Half-Life Alyx. That's really when the VR push really started to take place, and a whole new, you know. And I personally, I like VR. It's a little, I don't want to say gimmicky, but it makes me as happy as the Xbox, not the Xbox, the Wii's motion controls did back in 2006. I knew it wouldn't replace anything.
You've got the PlayStation VR to clarify, or have you got the PC VR?
I have the Oculus. Now it's the Meta Quest, I guess. The Meta Quest 2 and the PS VR 2. Those are currently my.
And which of those do you think is the better of the two?
Yeah, it's funny to say that because the better stuff is on the PSVR 2, but you are tethered to a wire. And even though you don't really notice it, I could see people not liking it and going for the Oculus instead.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Yeah, but right now, I'm playing more the VR2 only because I'm trying to get through Resident Evil Village.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever play the Phasmophobia?
I did not, no.
I played that. That was a bit of an interesting game. It was kind of fun, but it only had this one. It was a horror game, and for anyone that hasn't played it, you basically go ghost hunting. You go to this house, and someone to say, "Oh, my house is possessed," and you go to this house with your friends, and you used to do like all this sluicing around the house. You'd have all these different meters and stuff that you'd pick up from your ghost hunting truck, and you'd go through the house, and you'd do like some testing to see what kind of ghost is in the house, and then you would try and help them work out the ghost, and you'd try and capture the ghost. The only problem with the game was if you got killed by the ghost, then you became a ghost and you could basically just watch your friends play the game, which was kind of a bit boring. But the whole finding and trying to capture a ghost, it's kind of like a Ghostbusters kind of game, and I thought it was pretty fun. But a lot more work than a typical horror game where you're just walking around and trying to get scared.
Yeah, also around this time, Borderlands 3 came out.
That's not bad.
Nah. Fall Guys, I played with that a bit. It was cute.
That's a weird one as well, because that was another one that was bought out by Epic. Started off by being a $25 game, then they gave it to you for free now so they can try and keep the numbers in the game. So
yeah, but
that was weird because I got it on PlayStation as the actual PlayStation free game as a $25, and then when they upgraded it to a free game, they gave me all this credit and stuff for the online store on the PlayStation version, because they decided to make it free. I'm like, okay, so I got like a double win out of it.
Yeah, but overall for Steam, 2020 was a good year. I'm sure, kept you occupied in case you were locked down, so no one can complain about that.
You can also see that by the time we got to about the 2019, 2020s, a lot of these shooter games they were dominating in the early 10, 15 kind of era. Now everything the landscape of games has changed so much over Steam's lifetime, but I feel like there's only maybe one shooter game coming out at a time on Steam now. It's not like it used to be, like where it was like just getting dominated by those kind of games.
They're still shooters, but a lot of them are. I wouldn't know if I would call them indie. One of my favorite shooters of more recent times, 2019, was Ion Fury, and it's developed by 3D Realms,
Right.
and it uses the engine. It's heavily modified to look HD, 4K, all that pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
But they use the actual engine that Duke Nukem 3D used in 1997, the Build 3D engine, to make this game. I loved it. I thought it was a great game. Very under the radar. Not too many people know about it. And why would they? Because the popular shooters nowadays are the ones that you already know. You already know about Call of Duty. You already know about your Apex Legends. You know, like the big shooters. You get games sometimes like Atomic Heart that might pique interest for a little bit. But once it comes and goes. You know, okay, now we're playing it. Now we're not. You know, it goes away. You know, whereas now we're seeing video games that do not go away. That stick around for a long time.
So yeah, that's 100% true. So what are we up to? 2021 with
2021.
I didn't even realize that Halo Infinite with the multiplayer was released around then onto Steam. That was really interesting because I suppose we hadn't talked about this, but back when Call of Duty hit its peak, probably 2007, 2008, Call of Duty and Halo were battling for which was the best FPS. And then Halo just fell off a cliff. Like literally no one even talked about Battle Arena. Like people used to have these big tournaments with Halo. That kind of just went away so fast, and Call of Duty just dominated that era from then on. But then, yeah, to have the Halo Infinite multiplayer, I didn't even know it was a thing. There you go.
No, yeah. I mean, well, 2021 is important for my Steam year because that was the year I signed up for Steam for the first time.
Ooh.
I finally got my PC. Yeah, I finally got my PC. To find out, to me, getting the PC and in extension getting Steam it was my last frontier. I'm strictly console. I was my entire life, and you know, after you play everything, you've done everything. It's like, what else can you do that you just haven't done yet? And I was like, I've never had a PC. So, and of course, it's not like you can just go to the store right now. Yeah, give me your finest PC. You don't do that. You have to save up money and you have to work your butt off for it. So, you know, well, I'm not going to lie, more or less just waiting for my Christmas bonus to come in. And then once it did, I went right to Best Buy where they sold the pre-made PCs, and I got one. I came home, and by the end of the day, I was hooked. I loved it, and it was still one of the best purchases ever made.
What was your first game? What was the first game?
Shadow Warrior.
Oh, really?
The original Shadow Warrior. I never played it before. I was super jealous because, like I mentioned Duke Nukem a lot. I love Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
And it never came out on the consoles. It was one of those games that only came out on the PC. And I'm super jealous. I always wish it came out. So, yeah, that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, I wonder if Shadow Warrior's on here. Not only was it, but it was the redo version, so it looked better and played better from, you know, more modern PCs. Yeah, and it was great. Like I remember, shortly after that, I picked up the Half-Life collection.
Yeah, right.
You have to. You need to own Half-Life if you have Steam.
Like I think that's almost the untold advantage of PCs, because like you can go and pick up all the old Tomb Raiders on PC. You can go and pick up all the old games on PC. There's a lot of old games that are just kept on the Steam library that you can't get anymore, but you just might want a copy, so you go download them from Steam.
But you got to be careful. I did download Max Payne 1 on Steam, and there's something wrong with it. I looked at the message boards. Yeah, you have to download this patch from this website, do this, move the directory this way, all this stuff, and I was just like,
no, it's too much work.
I'll just play it on the Xbox. Thanks. Like that'll work. Thank you though. But you are right though. Just so much is there, and the fact I was able to pick up. You know, I downloaded Maniac Mansion. That's a DOS game. You know what I mean? And you can play the original DOS version. I picked up Redneck Rampage, another game that's like only DOS. This is all you can play on. You actually have to run DOSBox when you play it. all these like classic games that let's just say if you wanted to like get into 90s gaming on the consoles, and let's just assume you don't want to emulate, you would need
Yeah.
to, actually go out and try to find a copy of Super Metroid, Link to the Past and all this stuff. Even if you just want to download it on the Nintendo, you got to make sure it's available. If it's something more, sideways like Run Saber or Death Valley Rally, then you might have some trouble. But with PC, it's like once it's there, for the most part, it's there.
100%.
Yeah, and to cap off 2021, I will give special attention to Resident Evil Village. That was the first new game I got on my PC. Like as far as
why didn't you buy it on console though? Why did you try it? Is it because of the VR?
No, not. I did get it for console later on to take advantage of the VR, but honestly, it was my test. I want to see. I'm very computer illiterate. I just went with looked the best. I asked all my more PC savvy friends. I was like, "Look at these specs. Are these good specs?" And they were like, "Oh yeah." So I was like, "All right. Well, what's a new modern game, the newest game that's out right now, that I can play through it and see if it runs?" And it was Village, and yeah, run fine, played good, played as good as the PS5 version did once I got that. That was the watermark. Can it play Village?
Yeah.
Can it do that at least?
I feel like that's what you do with a PC though. You just like, it's like buying a new car. It's like, how fast can this go? It's like with the PC, it's like, how much graphics can I get out of this? I want to see my screen so lit up that it's like 20 Christmas trees are on there at once. That's what you just, what does it look like? Oh, and then you're like, now I'm going to go back to playing Terraria.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. All right, that was fun. Now time to go back in the DeLorean and go back in time. Then after that, we go to 2022, or as we call it, last year. Actually, 2022 is big.
My favorite game, Cult of the Lamb. I love that game. I love Cult of the Lamb.
Now, I hate to talk about other topics, especially since we're wrapping this up.
Yeah.
But you did hear about the Unity engine, right? Now, I've heard that Cult of the Lamb uses the Unity engine.
Yes, it does.
And there's a report that it might get delisted.
Oh, does it? Well, see, so the Unity engine is a free engine, and if you're making a game, you can go right to the internet now, and you can go to Unity, you can download the engine, and you can start making a game. It costs you nothing. But obviously, they have to make money. There's no point having a game engine that's accessible to everyone that they can't make money from, because otherwise, why would they bother updating it? Why would they bother making better features for the engine? So they want to make money, and that's their goal. So up until now, Unity has had this thing where after 200,000 downloads, so it's quite a few downloads. $200,000, not downloads, dollars, that they will take a certain percentage of your profits. So if you make a small indie game that doesn't do anything, you pay Unity nothing. If you make a game like Cult of the Lamb that just goes massive and makes millions of dollars, you've got to pay them a percentage of your thing, or you have to sign up to. There's an or there. You have to sign up to a different band of Unity, so you can go to Unity. The biggest, I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's like Pro. There's a Pro and a Deluxe, I think, one of those things, and you have to pay them $200 a month just to have Unity engine, and that's not just for one person, that's for everyone in the studio as well. So if you've got 5 people in the studio, then you need to have, that's going to be a fair few dollars. You're probably looking at $1,000 kind of just to be able to have that game on the store and not getting charged a royalty for having it on the store. Or back to the other part of the or, Unity will take a percentage of the game's profit. So they would take 5%. I can't remember the number, but now Unity has changed this to saying, well, once a game gets over $200,000, we're going to take a cent from every game that you sell, from every copy that you sell. So a game like this, that's Cult of the Lamb, for example, that's $35, and it's selling for, it's $35 Australian, $20 US, I would say. And that would be, they're getting a cent from every one of those games sold from now on. And that kind of adds up, but it's not a percentage. So depending on the price point, depending on if you're in front or behind with this new way of that they're changing their tax, so to speak, on the game developer. But if you release a free game, that's where it kind of gets a bit confusing, because free games could have in-app purchases, for example. And if you do 1 million free games and it earns $200,000, but you don't necessarily get a cent for every game that's installed, you might only get some money after every 5 games or 20 games that are installed, then it becomes that developer might start losing money, for example. So it's a bit of a watch this space moment. And
we're just gonna have to see where it goes. I hope it doesn't go. I mean, I'm still, how much is it? $25?
Yeah.
Is it only out for PC? Is it only for the PC?
I've got it on PS5.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll take a look at it.
Once you start playing that game, you'll be addicted. It's so nostalgic. It fits that nostalgic thing so well that people like us that are kind of played everything, this game kind of ties all that in together and makes it its own very special game.
One game that also came out last year that I tried a bit of, hope to actually complete it at some point, is Stray. I just thought that was a cool concept of just being a regular cat.
I found that it was a bit hard in parts. The game kind of like takes you start the game and you go down this one single path and it's all good. And then it kind of opens up when you get to the city. And then you've got to try and find what they want you to find to rubber band you around the city. And that bit gets confusing. That bit you kind of like, what do they want me to do? And then once you get past that, then it gets easier again, because I don't think they explain that bit very well. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. No. You played it. You knew more than I did. So thank you. And actually, yeah, after that, yeah, now we're home. Now we're in 2023, and honestly, of all the games I see on Steam for 2023, the only one I'm playing right now is Starfield. I'm loving it.
Oh,
and
no.
I do.
Baldur's Gate.
I do. Yeah. Is it on here?
Yeah.
I didn't see it on.
It's next to.
Oh, there it is. Yep,
Yeah.
I'm playing that. Yep, and actually, it's funny with Baldur's Gate 3 because it's the first true like PC RPG I'm really trying to get through. I just learned how to move the camera around, so that's good. That took me a little bit, but I'm enjoying it. But I'm at least Starfield is kind of taking a lot of that thunder. But as I mentioned in the Starfield episode, it's for some reason it crashes after like 5-10 minutes on my PC. So right now I'm playing through on my Xbox.
Did you ever play Hi-Fi Rush?
No, I heard of it, but I never actually went through it. How was it? I mean, it looks like a fun type of
Are you
almost like God of War kind of.
Were you ever into like your Guitar Heroes and all those kind of in sync music games?
I play Rock Band drums to this day. It's part of my workout routine.
Okay, so Hi-Fi Rush is a little bit like that. It's like a game where you go through and you're fighting people, but you've got to fight them in the beat of the drum of the music. And the more on beat you are with your hits, the higher your score will go, and you'll get better scores out of everything. It's very different to other games you play. I think it's free still on Game Pass, so if you want to try it on Game Pass, that's worth giving it a go. But
I might check it out, sure.
It's something very different. The Outlast Trials is the one that has me interested. Outlast 1, have you ever played Outlast 1?
I played Outlast 1. It was one of the first PS4 games I played. I want to say it was actually out for PS Plus. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
But like, because like it didn't like it wasn't like a wow graphical showcase. It was just a very creepy game, like first person horror game where you don't shoot
honestly
anyone.
the scariest game that I've ever played. I've never finished it because I find it too scary for me.
One of the things about Outlast, though, it's not the first game to do this, but it was the first game. It was the first regular game I played where there wasn't a focus. A lot of male nudity in Outlast.
There is a bit of yeah.
Those PlayStation 4 graphics leave nothing to the imagination. You know what I mean? You got me. So, but it was funny because like that's not the point. You're just playing the game. It's like, oh, some naked dudes. I gotta run away from them. They'll murder me. So I just remember laughing at that. I thought that was so funny. Outlast was scary. Never played the second one. But I did enjoy. Honestly, I kind of felt that the Resident Evil, what they did with 3 and 8, not 3 and 8, 7 and 8, I enjoyed that better than Outlast. And that kind of hit the same punch for me, so I kind of strayed away from Outlast, I mean.
Well, Outlast was Trials is actually a 2-player co-op one. That's what makes me intrigued about that because I'm interested to see how they incorporated that into the actual game. Yeah. So yeah, and you can see more indie games coming into focus here too with Dredge, Sons of the Forest. I think that was reasonably. It was a bit of a survival game that was pretty indie made. I don't think it was a huge game, but yeah.
Oh, they made a Starship Troopers game? Huh. I might need to check that out. I love that movie.
Well, finally, we've sold you a game.
Yeah, there we go. And it took 20 years, but I finally got a game. Yay! Man, well that was a good. I will say this: this was a nice. Even though I really wasn't around for Steam in the beginning, just seeing these games and a lot of them I already had, it was a nice trip down memory lane. And the funny thing is, I didn't really go back that far, it was more or less just the showcase of this century so far. And already the history for just that is just so extensive. Just goes to show you how many layers video games in general got.
Oh, I'm pretty happy that Steam is the platform it is. Like, I feel like Steam keeps the gaming community around and it kind of keeps the consoles in check as well. Like without something like Steam, I feel like, I don't know, there would have to be someone would have to replace it with something similar, but it's very much
Epic
a
Games
huge,
there.
Epic Games. Yeah. Shut Steam down. Epic Games walks in.
Yeah.
But Steam is very much a huge part of the gaming industry and it's massive compared to, I think it's almost, I don't know if it makes more money than PlayStation or Xbox, but it would have to be somewhere in the same ballpark.
Maybe not, because it definitely seems like Steam's like puts a lot more of their stuff on sale than PlayStation and Xbox. It seems a little bit so accessible. So, and also since it's on the PC, one can only assume that it's a lot easier to pirate games on the PC. So who knows how many people are not just paying for this stuff, somehow. I don't condone it, but it seems like it's easier to do it on this than it is that.
I feel like that's one of the things we haven't talked on about the whole Steam episode is the whole Steam sale. I mean, how many games have I bought on Steam sale just because I might play it one day? I think that's what everyone has, this huge collection of games for Steam sale.
I got L.A. Noire on sale. I got all those Star Wars games on sale. Shovel Knight I got on sale. Just like a bunch of the Worms. I'm pretty sure was on sale. Yeah, they get you with those sales. Not that the other systems don't have sales, but with Steam it just seems like there's always more of a sale going on.
Yeah, it's to a higher extent. Like if it's on sale on Steam, it seems like it's 90% off, and you're like, where PlayStation will be like 80% off, and you're like, 90%. Oh, I've got to jump on that now, and I need that sale price from, and I'll probably never play it. And I refuse to look at Steam sales now because I know that I'm just going to buy random crap that I'm never going to play. So, it's
Well, with all that said, though, I am exhausted talking about Steam. One would say I need to relax in a steam bath, maybe. just that. But I'm happy with my Steam. I'm new to the party, but I'm loving it already, and I can't wait to see what the next 20 years brings.
yeah, so it's going to be exciting. That's it for this show. Sorry for the super long show. It's massive.
Hey, 20 years, man.
It's
We
a
got
long
through
time.
it. We got through it though, and I hope we get the next 20 is just as fun.
Digital high five, and we're going. Okay. See.